Who's muted?
We're not muted. We're like, go for it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, September 15th Finance and Administrative Committee meeting for the City of Philomath. It's 4 p.m. I forgot to mention that. And let's begin the meeting with a roll call, or can we just do the
call it out?
round robin? Measure everyone.
Christopher McMorrin.
Teresa Nielsen.
Mike Brzezinski, Finance Director.
Chris Workman, City Manager. And Chelsea Steiner, Assistant City Manager, just getting the door.
All right. It looks like the very first thing we're going to do is look for public comment. Seeing if there's nobody in person here, one online participant, and nobody has given notice that they would like to speak, I'm going to assume that there is none. Looks like the next order of business is approval of the minutes from July 8th, 2025. Did we get a chance to look at that and everybody feel okay with that? Like, in the packet.
Yeah, I think it's an abridged packet.
There was a lot to get into the packet. That's understandable.
Here then.
But yeah, I think it looks good to me.
Davis.
Yep, looks good to me. Matches what I remember. So, all in favor? We got to do.
Should we probably make a
Do
motion?
Oh, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from July 8th as presented.
And I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Forward, we will be looking at social service funding and transient lodging tax allocation. We got a ton of information here. Did Mike or somebody want
Yeah,
to give us a little working roadmap here?
I'll run through it real quick. In front of you, you've received 13 applications. 6 of them are for the social service grant agency, which has funding of $31,409. There's 6 in the tourism grants. There's 3 newbies in there, or new people, I should say. And there's funding there, $14,431. Utility assistance funding, we have $10,575 with 1 applicant. So the process that we've done in the past is we go through each function. We'll do the social service first. Council, or I should say the committee, will set up an allocation which you feel is comparable or perfect for this. Then we'll take that recommendation to council for approval. So social service first, got 6 people, all new, or it's all the same people as before. Their requests are $42,005. We have $31,004. So to create a math to spread it out. What we've done in the past is that people have, the ones that have kept their same funding as the year before, we start with that, and then we take the balance and move around from that. I didn't do the math this time because it could, you guys might have different ideas. So, let's, if we want to try that, we can. We can split it 3, or I think there's Two of the six are just requested what they had last year, so we can split the remaining 20,000 between the other four, or whatever amount you like you want to do.
I would just note on the math that we have about $5,500 less this year than last year. So
Right.
even if we matched everybody from last year, we'd still be short a little bit. So,
Right.
and that's just a product of collecting fewer state revenue
Right.
taxes this year. We're receiving less of an allocation of the state revenue kickback. So
Yep.
we're
That's
down
good.
$5,500, so we have $5,500 less to spend, but the asked amount is actually about equivalent to last year's. It's just,
Yeah.
so we'll need to do some math and, staff, we try to be kind of careful. We're happy to advise, but really it's the council's discretion, this committee's discretion on how you see best fit to split that funding up. So happy to answer any questions you've got, but if not, it's helpful for you guys to deliberate or put some on the table or just have open conversation about how we allocate this funding appropriately.
Could I skip ahead perhaps to the utility? I don't know, what's it called officially? Yes, utility assistance funding. Assuming that We Care would be interested in accepting twice what they asked for, then I would move that the committee recommend to the city council the donation of $10,575 to We Care from the water and sewer funds.
So you mean not give them the 5?
Well,
Or
we
give-
have $10,575 available,
Oh,
and they were the only.
Right.
and that's after that we
Organization,
give, after they were gifted the 5.
No, so this is like this is how much we have in the budget to
Okay,
give.
okay.
This is how much was requested to be
Right.
given. So I figured, I'm assuming they would be able to distribute 10,000 as easily as they'd be able to distribute
Right.
5,000, since no one else submitted an application.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's a good question.
And we say this every year, we continually are referring. Anytime somebody's getting a shut off or given saying that they're having a hard time, that's the first thing that we do is give them that number to reach out, get some assistance and some help, so. They're pretty clearly a bottom line service, right? If you don't know what else to do,
Yeah.
they're gonna try and help.
Said in their application, the money they received last year was not enough.
Yeah,
They ran it out pretty quick. So, I mean, there's a lot of needs out there. There really is. I mean, we have a lot of people come through utility billing looking for help.
As utilities. I agree.
Yeah, so we do have our low income utility rate that we offer, but in addition to that, even when that's, sometimes that's not enough, or sometimes they may not necessarily qualify that or feel like they don't qualify. They're just having a couple of hard months and need some help. This is a great resource to go through. So between our discounted utility rate that we can charge, in addition to the referral, this funding that we give to We Care to help time of need, it's money well spent to help out residents and staff making those utility payments. I mean, assuming there isn't a process for reallocating it potentially, I would say just give it all, if it's designed for that, then to do anything different. My only hope would, the only other option was if we could put it towards where we had less money than before, but I think we're gonna get pretty close on the one. Not everybody's gonna get exactly what they asked for, but we.
Say it's kind of specific.
Yeah,
It's down of the utility funds.
Well, then does somebody wanna make a motion on that?
I just made.
Oh, you just made one.
I just don't think we got a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Yeah, that's an easy one, okay.
Happy people that we care.
Yeah.
Available for that.
We're the only happy people.
I was gonna say that, but I was thinking it briefly.
But a good one to end on.
Yeah. I just wanted to get the easy one out of the way.
So, had a couple of thoughts here if somebody has different ideas, let me know. I mean, do we want to see what the math for just like an equitable looks like and how close we are to everybody's needs then? Do we want, that feels less like balance, like trying to decide who's more or less worthy or whatever?
Yeah, I think we should look at that. I feel like I also tried to kind of look through how scalable some of their proposals were, or like what they said they'd use the funding for.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I also kind of, in my mind, tried to prioritize like very Philomath specific things, just sort of based on what they do and where they're located. Not that other things don't have value, but yeah. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Some interaction with it, well, we probably all had interactions with each of these.
Right.
That are listed. And so I think there is great work to be done, and it's varied, the focus of each organization. So it's very difficult to say this one has more value in their request because they each do such important work. And even though some of them aren't founded here in Philomath, they definitely are helping Philomath citizens and Philomath children. So in my thoughts, prior to this, I didn't have answers when I got here, but in my thoughts, I was a little bit with Council Irwin about, it's about 80%. We can give almost everyone on that list about 80% of their request and still be within budget. And 80%, I would feel more comfortable with giving everyone, say, 80, 81% of what they're requesting, rather than having one person really go without any funding. I think 80% is still better than nothing.
Yeah, so if you wanted to go like 80% of what everybody asked for, that would get you
Pretty
there.
close to that, would it?
The other option was just if we just take the 3149 divided by 6 requests, get you to 5234 each. So you can kind of have that number kind of compare. And I don't mind being a little outspoken. I love Benton Habitat for Humanity. I've gone to their fundraisers, everything else. That's just always one I feel like there's really is a very small number of people and households that they're impacting in our community, that it's always felt a little uneasy giving them as much money as somebody like, I'll just say a PYC or Strength of Our Families or a Flow Community Services that's giving to like hundreds and hundreds of people in the community. So I've always felt like, yes, they do good work. I always feel like they have a much bigger umbrella than Habitat for Humanity. I mean, they're hitting the entire county up and all that money gets pooled. It doesn't necessarily just go to the Philomath families. And even if it did, again, you're talking about a couple of houses that are going up right now. So you're talking about 2 households that are getting $10,000 as opposed to some of these other organizations that serve a lot of like hundreds of people in our community. So I always just feel like if there's some distinctions to be made, I think that's one that I always look at.
And on the counter of that, having participated in ABC House's fundraisers, I mean, they're the amount of funds that they are talking about, 5,000 is a hiccup. I mean, to be honest, is a cough, because we're talking, they fundraise millions. And so, on the counter, whereas as an educator here in Philomath, have I seen the results of Habitat for Humanity over the years? I can now probably name every house that I've been to in Philomath that's been, and families and individuals and kids that have come to school that now have a place that they can stay for an extended period of time, a home to call their own. So you're right as well.
Still not the hundreds though. We're
Right.
still talking about dozens maybe, right? Maybe a dozen plus homes.
Yeah, maybe,
Habitat for many homes in Philomath over the last 20
probably,
years.
probably a dozen homes.
Yeah.
I guess, I'll just say, I think Habitat for Humanity does do projects besides building houses. They also renovate houses, make them more accessible. So I think that does spread the reach. I hear the sort of a numbers game around how many people are they reaching. I do just think that when you look at the council's priorities and our strategic plan, I feel like Habitat for Humanity is directly related to more of the council's priorities around housing and housing affordability. Whereas we obviously care about all these things, but some of them aren't as directly related to like what I think the council views the role of the city government in promoting. So I think I wouldn't want to ding on them too hard just because, if we talk a lot about wanting to increase housing availability and affordability, they are doing that, even if it's only for, a few, dozen folks, that's still an impact, but.
Households.
Right.
Yeah,
But
and I think to that point, we could pro and con interview one of these, right? I think the point is how do you do something, right?
Right.
I'm not gonna vouch for or argue for or against any one of these, because I could argue for or against any one of them. I think it's more just a matter of how do you find that distinction, or do you just find something that's just equal across all ways? I know in the past, there's been comments, at least out of this committee, and probably at the council level as well, about, well, just because you asked for $20,000, does that mean that you get 80% of the 20,000 you asked for? As opposed to somebody else who asked for 8,000, needed it, and they only get 8% of that. So, I don't know that we necessarily need to be rewarding people for asking for the moon and hoping for the moon either. So, but again, council just needs to figure out how to.
It looks to me, and I'm certainly, there's potential for me to be, but none of these appear to be for like a capital purchase or something like that, where they're saying, we need $8,000 for a new van to take kids somewhere or something. So that makes me more inclined to be more flexible about maybe an equitable distribution, like somebody isn't missing out on what they're asking and needing the money for if we did a reduced amount or something of that nature. Right? I didn't see one. There are, if I think about a merit type situation when I look at these, one of the things that, there are a couple of these that stand out as like pretty directly serving large portions of, are we Philomathites or Philomathians?
Philomathians is what I.
Philomathians? Oh, that sounds like from the future. Philomathians, like handing out food and clothes, or like real, like kind of like we care as some real basic, like bottom line functions. Some of these are more, right, less needs based and more like serve kind of a broad, I'd still serve the good of the city, but maybe in a not so like emergent way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like wine walks are good, but they're better if everybody in town had something to eat or what I got.
That's down tourism.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
It quotes the newspapers right there.
Thank God Brad's not here.
Let them eat cake.
Why aren't they just going to the wine walk?
That's into maybe a good to have this conversation though, is we will note that Activity did apply for both social service funding and transit lodging tax, so that might be worth the conversation on, do you have them eligible for both? Do you kind of do one or the other? Because if you see Activity is more of a tourism base, which they've got, I would argue, a strong application for those tourism dollars, then you give them out of both pots, or do you just do the tourism and then they would be removed from this, which would mean more money in social service funding for all of those organizations, or vice versa? Do you fund them out of social services? And then when you get to transit lodge tax, so well, we've already given them a pot of money, so let's remove them from that list. So that might be a good discussion to have before we go much further in social services, what we do with Activities applications.
I thought that was really interesting. I had the same question about like, should we do both? But like the applications they submitted for each are for like the social services application is for more, so like it's more like PYAC, like it's for providing like after school summer programming for children. Whereas the tourism grant one is like for a specific project to help boost tourism in the city. In a way where I almost feel like we should just contract with them to have them do that, even if we don't give them the money here, just because it feels like that project that they're talking about,
will almost be more beneficial for us than it will be for them. So I guess I see it as two separate applications, especially because they haven't applied for the tourism funding before, and I think I wouldn't really describe them as a tourist organization right now. I think they would like to become more of that and assist more with that, but like, I mean, sure, maybe they get some kids from Corvallis coming to their camps or something, but I wouldn't really call that tourism in the
They're
same
not
way
the
that.
big draw.
Right, in the same way that like the rodeo or the wine
Theme park
walk or
yeah.
something, you know,
Yeah.
actually draw people from all over. But I think for their specific application, that is a great tourism related project. So I realize that might not be the most helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a really fair point, though,
Yeah.
like they clearly differentiated the two and
Yeah, I mean, just because I love like their application, like there's very little in the application that is actually about an activity. It's all about basically doing our strategic plan for us and establishing Philomath as a, creative destination. Whereas their social services one is like, we want to provide snacks and supplies to children.
right, which are definitely different projects.
Right. So I guess I would just say I wouldn't, my first instinct was like to, ding them in one or the other because they did both, but I think if we're grading it based on the applications they submitted, the applications are for very different
Absolutely.
things. So.
And and clearly articulated.
Right, yeah. So I know that's not helpful because we haven't solved anything, but
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, the thing that seems out of the options of splitting it equally or splitting it by a percentage, I feel like I would maybe prefer the percentage route, but what do you guys think?
Can we just discuss the social, are you
Yeah.
talking about doing?
No,
both
no,
at the same
no,
way?
yeah, just.
We back to social, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to clarify.
Yes, yeah, I was just talking about now for fair question. Just for the social services funding, like, do we want to just split the 31,000 by 6, or do we want to just, fund everyone at 80% of what they requested?
So personally, and I'll go with either way, but I do kind of like the percentage piece. I think they have ideas and their presentations and the applications they submitted were clear about what they were wanting to do. I think doing the 80% gets them closer to what their goals would be. So I'm comfortable with that.
I think it's closer to 74%.
Is it 74%?
Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was eyeballing.
It's okay.
74%.
If you're,
Okay, thank you.
if you're going down that path.
Okay, and 74% gives us and makes our
Should work.
goal.
I'll run the number.
Does that change how we feel about percentage, knowing it's 74 instead of 80?
I mean, I think my only concern with that is it means most people will get less than they got last year.
Do you want the numbers?
Sure.
3,700, 7,400, 3,700, 5,180, 5,920, 5,550. And that totals 31,450. That is slightly over, so you have to adjust a little bit in there.
Just it over?
Like $41.
Yeah, but in reality, we have less money than last time.
We do, yeah,
So as far as justifying why is it we have less than we got last year.
Totally,
We could
yeah.
explain that piece of.
right.
Request came in at 42,500, but our actual funding available was only,
Yeah.
so we could, clarify that in the explanation of the grant.
I'm picking on Habitat, but I'm gonna do it again. With their ask on that, they'd be they're the only ones that would get an increase from
Right,
last year's
right.
funding, and everybody else is getting a decrease. So I just feel like their ask was a lot higher,
Right.
even than like the average ask. They're kind of the outlier. I mean, they're
Right.
$2,000 more than the next closest and double what some of the others asked for. I just feel like they were maybe ambitious on their ask, which was great, but when you've got a limited amount of funding, I think you do need to take that into consideration. So that seems to be a little bit of the outlier for me.
So if we kept them at 65,
65% or 6,500?
6,500.
Okay.
and then took the difference between those two, and
Yeah.
then spread that, does that make sense? So if we took this, made it to
Go
6,500,
Chelsea.
and then take that difference and divide it by into the others equally? Oh, does it make sense?
No, I think.
No,
it
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Chris can.
I can get a
Excellent.
calculator, but she's got the spreadsheet going, so I'm gonna let her do the
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
You did, if you reduce them you're saying just reduce them to 6,500 and then put them in the calculation of,
And then,
Yeah.
which is right. So at 80%, if you did that, we would come out to 31,200.
That's-
The numbers are 4,000, 5,200, 4,000, 5,600, 6,400, 6,000.
you repeat those numbers starting at the top again?
4,000, 5,200, 4,000, 5,600, 6,400, and 6,000.
They're short 200.
Yeah,
Skip.
209.
So I'm wondering, I don't know a lot about the finances for Habitat. So this is cause essentially their ask is we want 10 grand, presumably to help with building a house, because it does, even with a lot of in-kind donation for labor or contract labor or whatever, you still, right? Like there's a lot of other sources. So I feel comfortable with the idea that while it's a worthy ask to see if we thought that was a good idea, it does kind of feel like, and as much as we can get for our project ask, rather than some of these seem budget around making their after-school program work or making sure sports keeps going, or what, like filling a specific project rather than just a bucket for projects. Am I on the right? Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels
I
like.
think I also, I love the work they're doing. Their application was not very verbose.
No.
For the purpose of requested funds, we are requesting funding to support the construction of permanently affordable house, I'm guessing, in our Woodlands project in Philomath that will support an underserved and low-income family a home. This project will expand housing access, promote long-term stability, and directly address housing insecurity in our community.
That's,
So I'm
it
getting
felt
the
like, yeah,
vibe,
can you put some money
paint
in
or
the
something,
bucket?
but
And
yeah.
I think it's a good bucket,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to be transparent, clear about that. I'm not knocking the mission.
Right, but I think it's fair.
But some of these have a specific mission to make sure kids play sports, or like for this year's thing, and this feels more like a general fundraising.
And my totals only came up to 31,000, and when I wrote down, but maybe I wrote them down wrong. So I am comfortable with, even though we requested 10,000, giving them whatever it was, 5,000 is what Chelsea said. Did you say Habitat would get five? Was it 4,000, then 5,000, then 4,000, then 5,600?
So Habitat, you talked about lowering their ask essentially to 65.
And then,
And then they would end up with 52.
52,
Mhm.
5,200, okay. And then, okay, 56, okay. All right. That brings everyone, still everyone does get less than their previous one, but not quite the,
And it's a little more proportional to
yes,
just
I
the
agree.
reduction from last year, right? So like everybody's getting down a little bit, but it's about the same amount on each of them, so.
So are we comfortable
I'm
with that?
comfortable with that, and
Mayor, are you comfortable with
I
those
think
totals?
so. I think I guess I misunderstood. I thought we were going to reduce Habitat to to their amount from last year, and then not reduce that to 80%, but we didn't do that.
Did reduce that to 80%.
No, I know, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay.
So I think I misunderstood
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
our
I
intent
wasn't
was.
super clear until we got to
Yeah.
here,
I thought
but
that
I'm
was
okay with
Teresa's
either.
ask, I think, was.
Yeah.
I think I wasn't on the same page,
Okay.
but if that is what you guys want to do, that's fine with me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so one more time from the top down on that one.
Okay, 4,000, 5,200, 4,000, 5,600, 6,400, 6,000. We still have $209, so
There was some little-
if you wanted to throw that in the bucket, if that made you feel better about them in the.
Let's just use it all. Use it all, don't we?
Just,
Yeah, can we throw that back to Habitat since we covered it so much?
Yeah.
would be,
Okay, and that would make them up to,
yep,
And I mean, I doubt they asked because they need the money.
Right.
Yeah. Which would be,
so can I make do I have to make a motion for that?
yeah.
Okay. And do I need each individual amount
No,
listed?
say what we just discussed.
Okay.
And then I'll run
The
through,
total.
how's that?
What was that?
I'll do it for you.
Okay.
Okay, you make your motion, then I'll do the numbers.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we will award the social service funding as we have discussed to each of the each of the applicants, which will be totaling $31,409 as,
And I have for ABC 4,000, Benton Habitat 5,409, Maxtivity 4,000, Philomath Community Services 5,600, PYA is 6,400, Strengthening is 6,000, that's 31,409.
I'll second that.
Yep,
Okay.
I'll second that.
we have a motion, is that good language or is it just, my question is a recommendation to city council or is it just, so we recommend
Sure.
Okay. Because we're not actually approving it, right? Okay, we're just.
do we have to vote on that or don't?
Yeah, all in favor? Aye. Okay. So we approve. Okay, and now we are moving on to tourism grant funding. Similar, do we need an introduction or you guys want to just dive in?
This one's gonna be less fun.
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
let's
Sorry.
do this here.
No,
I'm with you.
I guess I'm just curious, do we know why we have less money than last year?
Yes, state's just not collecting enough. We last year, we budgeted, we were kind of liberal in our budgeting.
Sure.
We found out after receiving them this year that we were about half short. So that's why I should say half short, probably about three quarters.
Sure.
So we were quarter down, so that's about where we are this year. That's what we're projecting.
So is that because of of less overnight stays or just less?
No, it's all the same. It was just our projections were a little higher than they should have been last year.
Okay.
So we only had about a year's worth of data going into it.
Sure.
We're out there, we've got comfortable with, and then about 3/4 of a year into, we're like, yeah, we're gonna be short. And what it did was with the way that this is set up, half the money goes into going down to these community organizations, the other half the city keeps.
Right.
And we do projects downtown or wherever for tourism. So we just had less money for like digital display sign that we were gonna put out there. We didn't have all the funding we needed for it because we didn't collect the other half. So we've tried to be a little more, much more conservative this go around. So no more than half that money is gonna go to this program, and the other half the city will keep and be able to put towards our display sign this year.
Well, I have a few thoughts,
I
Mr.
would
Chair.
that was gonna be my question. Does anybody have any thoughts?
And these are not fully formed, this is just me discussing, so yeah. I guess I know per my previous comments, I would really like to give Maxtivity as much of that 2,000 as we can, just because it's the lowest request and it seemed like the most sort of tangible and aligned with the council's strategic vision of the requests. Not that the others aren't, but just like I said, that one seems like it benefits us more than it benefits them almost, and it's the lowest ask. I think the other ones, the chamber, the rodeo, and the historical society are sort of perennial favorites, which I think we should probably continue to fund. I do know that a certain city manager will agree with me on a comment here, in that I would love to just get some clarity from the chamber around the outcomes, because they have submitted basically the same application for the last several years, saying that they're gonna, similar to the Maxtivity one, make sort of a map of downtown and where to find businesses. That has not happened yet, which I think is bringing me to a larger point of, I would love anyone that we fund to invite them to come to a city council meeting in, 6, 8 months, something in the spring, and just kind of tell us about how it's going. Not as, not like we're gonna roll back your funding if you haven't achieved your goals yet, but just, I know some of the grantees in the past have even asked me, like, do you guys even care? Like, I feel like we write all these cool things in the, grant application, and then you send us a check, and that's kind of the end of the communication, which is usually because we have more money than we have requests. So we're like, sure, have it. But I think if we're,
Good, yeah.
yeah, I think if we're gonna start having to be a little more selective, I think it's also just good relationship building to have, the historical, we've started having some of these folks come in and present, but I just think it would be good for both sides to kind of have that marker of coming in and sharing. So that's one thing that I'll just say about the chamber ask is, I love the chamber. I think they do good work. I think they're a great part of the community. I would love to actually see that map.
Yeah, the map.
And then the last thought, which is maybe more of a question that I would want to hear your thoughts on. The Philomath Scout Lodge request was to help them build a veterans memorial at the Scout Lodge to host Veterans Day events, which it feels like the city just did. So I very much support our veterans and support honoring them and having a place to honor them, but I have mixed feelings about spending tax money to build a second Veterans Memorial in the same city that we just built a brand new Veterans Memorial in. So I guess that's just I want to support the Scout Lodge, just that particular request that they put in their application didn't necessarily feel like a priority, given that, it'd be like if we already had a rodeo and then someone else wanted to get TLT money to do another rodeo. It's like, well, I don't know if we need that. So I guess that's more of a question, just that I would like to support them, but I don't know if that's top of the list for me.
I'll just say on that, I know that when we were looking at doing the Paul Cochran Veteran Memorial Park, we took some consideration, because I know that Scout Lodge has already had a Veterans Memorial out there, and they do specific named individuals. Families of those individuals of veterans can submit names for recognition, and they get put on a rock, or there's things out there where they've got name placards where it's specific names.
Okay.
So when we did the Cochran Memorial Park, we very specifically didn't want to duplicate those efforts. We wanted just to all veterans, Philomath area, all branches, all wars, and we're very, very general intentionally, because we didn't want to duplicate efforts of what they already have at the Scout Lodge. So we didn't want to take anything away from what the Scout Lodge was already doing, because they've been doing that for years, and I think it's a great program. I think this specifically is for some type of a meeting outdoor facility that they've got some concrete poured. I don't know if there's something covering or something out there. So I think it's a worthy effort. I get the concern about the duplication. But again, we've tried to keep those kind of separate things, and I think they are a little bit separate, but they're veterans memorials, right? So one is more at the Scout Lodge, which isn't always open and accessible to the public. The other's in a public park, which is always open and accessible to folks. So I don't know, let me shift from that to a more general comment, I guess, not to target the Scout Lodge and their application, but when we look at transient lodging tax dollars, which is coming, this is coming directly from people who have come here and stayed the night here overnight and then returned to wherever they were going. So these are Airbnbs, and then our one hotel that we have in town for folks that came from out of the area. When Oregon Tourism looks at their numbers, they consider a tourist anyway from outside of the 50-mile radius is who they're targeting for a lot of these funding up at their side. And so that's kind of the model we've looked at as well, is if the dollars are being spent by people from outside of that 50-mile radius, or people that are coming to stay the night here, which means they're not within that 1 or 2 hour driving distance, that's really where where Oregon tourism tries to focus their dollars, and we've tried to follow that similar kind of pattern here as well. So if any of these tourism dollars, even though things may seem like events that people will go to, if you're not really attracting people from outside of the area, then maybe it is more just a local event that's supporting local community stuff and not necessarily a tourism event that's bringing tourism into the area. Of course, there's a lot of gray there, right? But just kind of generally speaking, that's a decent rule to kind of go by. And the reason I guess I would throw the caution is we do want to be a little careful here, although we're way over percentages, but technically, 70% of all that tourism dollars that we collect has to be spent on tourist-related activities. We don't want to get in a spot where we're giving a lot of money to very local projects that we can't substantiate that it's not really tourist related. It's more like supporting a local art exhibit or something like that, for example, where for the most part, 99% of people are gonna be from right here locally that go and see that. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think we're in any danger of that getting pushed up against, but and the ones that complain, just to go real big picture, the ones that complain are the hotels and the Airbnbs. When they see that those funds aren't being used for tourist-related activities, they'll come typically to the city councils and challenge that and say, hey, the TLT dollars aren't being used appropriately. They need to be for tourist activities, which are supporting people that are staying in our Airbnb or our hotel motel. So it's kind of maybe as an added criteria as you're looking at all these with some gray area. I know a lot of gray area. If it's clearly not gonna attract people from outside that 50-mile radius, that may be something that we question a little bit more. If it's something that is pulling from outside that 50-mile radius, then maybe that's a little bit more of a shoe-in for a tourist-related activity. I mean, it's not always just attracting, it's also giving them a good experience while they're here, right? So like, for example, waypointing signs in downtown. Nobody's gonna come from outside a 50-mile radius and stay the night at Fulham because we have great signage downtown. But when they do come from out of town, we want them to be able to find their way and have a good experience so that they're willing to come back or they're not walking around circles all the time, for example, right? So it's drawing them here or giving them a better experience when they are here. And that opens the door just a little bit more too.
I guess on that note, is that something we might be able to add on the application? Like, do you have, like, if they could say, oh, a percentage of visitors to their events, do they have an estimate of how many are from that just, because I'm kind of curious. I have anecdotal evidence from sitting at the farmer's market or from going to the museum or that kind of, or, going to the frolic, but I would be curious if they would have, I mean, some of them, like the farmer's market's probably a little harder to gauge, but like, some of them, you can see where the ticket purchaser is from, or you can check the.
Yeah, another good question is who are you marketing your event? Like, who are you at? If everything's Philomath and Corvallis and your keywords or your distribution of flyers.
Right. Whoa, see, thank you.
Yeah. No. Okay. But like, who are you inviting to the?
Right.
Yeah, and that was actually part of what the scout law, like, not to pack on, but they kind of talk about, they have, 150 events a year for the people in our area, which is great. But
Right.
is that a tourism? Yeah.
Yeah, no. We could definitely look at the application and see if we can emphasize that a little bit more in the future, so.
Yeah, not to like say we don't want to, but just even just as a statistic to look at, like, yeah. I mean, because I guess also, I mean, obviously the Frolic gets a decent number of folks from outside of the area. I do think like the Sip and Stroll gets a good number of folks from outside. Not huge, but decent. Same with the farmer's market. I am constantly kind of surprised
when I sit out there and someone's like, oh yeah, we drove in from like Lebanon, or like, oh yeah, I'm from Portland. And I'm like, what, why are you here? I mean, I'm so
Met
glad-
people from New York.
yeah. But literally, I remember who was there, someone from Paris came up,
Yeah.
and I was like, well,
I think the alternate day is useful in that notice. Like, I think a lot of people are like, hey, it's like a bonus
Something.
yeah,
market because
That's
it's
true.
on,
Yeah,
like, we
that's
can
on.
also go hit Philomath on
Yeah,
Sunday,
yeah.
but they were at whatever their regular parking,
So,
which I'm happy about. I mean, it's great.
so I just to say, I feel like those, I feel relatively comfortable saying that, you know, maybe they aren't primarily drawing a ton of people from outside, but they do draw tourists. The Historical Society, I'm assuming, has some draw. I don't know, just because I don't know if they track that and everything, but it is a sort of a fixture of the town's identity for people who are visiting.
I think by nature, people
Right.
do travel
Right.
places and stuff at the museums too. But
And then I think
stay there.
Maxtivity doesn't right now, but I think the project that they submitted for is directly related to that.
Can I speak to
Yeah.
that project a little
To
bit?
that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have been talking to the Maxtivity director a little bit, newish director, and talking about the art committee and forming the art committee and the downtown area. And she has a ton of experience with public art and is absolutely going to be an asset. With that being said, I love her idea, but she and I even have talked about how this is kind of a step in this process that we're trying to build up, which is kind of getting a plan in place, getting some people to help make decisions in place, looking at how we're going to fund things. And I think this is a very valuable project that she's brought forward. I think it's going to come forward either way. And I think, like Christopher had said, what we may look at in the future is how are we potentially, if Maxtivity is going to take the lead on helping with that downtown core project, we probably are going to have to look at ways to help them find funding, have some funding from the city. So I think it's going to come up again in maybe a different venue or assisting them with applying for some grant funding to help with that project. So even if it weren't funded now, it's going to come back. This is something that is not just going to stop if right now it has to stop because you have some really challenging numbers to crunch here. So
Because it almost feels like something we could fund out of our half of the TLT money too, or our.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem not giving this to
Yeah.
Maxtivity just because I don't feel like we're ready there. I don't think our art committee's there yet, and I don't want it to be competing interests. It's the same project that we've been talking about getting up and going with the downtown art stuff. So I think I think the application got submitted before there was conversations about, the city's already working on this. I was like, oh, you are?
Okay.
So I think there should be collaboration there. We've got money for the downtown art. We've got some seed money for this year in addition. So I wouldn't have any problem just striking this to allow for more funds for other organizations, because I think we will align well with Maxtivity and their vision for helping us with the downtown art.
I think I'm fine with that as long as we make that like clear to the council that we're not.
Yeah, the recommend is
And
two
back
parts. One,
Right.
And clear to Max. Yes, yeah, that
Yeah.
as well.
Like we're not really striking it, we're putting it on hold for.
Or
little bit.
devalue.
Be for future city funding for,
Right.
like you said, the TLT funds that the city still has,
Right.
or the seed money for the downtown project.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she's aware of that now at this point in time that we've talked about making sure that we're doing this really mindfully. And, you know, we don't want to just buy some art and then say, oh, whoops, we actually didn't want that art in our community. We wanted this kind of art. So we're talking about doing, you know, this in order, like Chris said. So I think, I do not think that she will be offended. She's still here to help figure out the process and future funding. So.
I guess I'm wondering if we could just talk about the Frolic and the Historical Society, because those are the two biggest requests. And are both a good chunk more than they got last year.
just how you both are feeling about that.
Well, I'm reading over unless I misread it, which is a possibility, but it looked like the maintenance was the main goal of the Historical Society, did I?
I think mostly, yeah.
And the big ask from the 48 to the 10. So I'm more comfortable in maybe keeping them more at the level where they were
Right.
than increasing to the 10,000, especially knowing that our entire budget is 14.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't feel very practical. does
It doesn't.
I mean, I'm not even sure keeping,
5
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah.
that's half of our entire budget. And I mean,
Um,
realistically, the thing with the frolic is that when we talk about tourist draw,
yes.
that's the one, right? Like it's pretty hard to dispute that it's not, particularly with the lodging related, like people that come and stay here or rent RV spaces or Airbnbs or whatever, largely because they live from. I don't have the actual data, but I anecdotally, like if there's a lot of people in Philomath, all of a sudden, it's pretty clear that it's frolic weekend. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's up quite, I mean, that's most of the budget too, though, right?
I also, I know we haven't in the past really cared what they said they were gonna use the money for. I did think it was interesting, the Bountiful Backyard said they were gonna spend $4,000 on a new website, and the Frolic said they were gonna spend $12,000 on a new website. You know, it's a bit, I mean, I get maybe more people will visit the Frolic website, but just for what they submitted that they were going to use the money for, there was basically the same thing. It's not like they've submitted for the money to go to the, you know, the arena remodel or anything like that. So.
That would have been a much larger ask.
I just,
Yeah, I mean, we just did our website. I mean, I think unless Bountiful's got somebody volunteering a lot of their time, I mean, we know what it costs to.
I think it's
revamp
the
a new
time.
website.
yeah, okay.
That's, yeah. Maybe
But-
Bountiful has some more.
To your point, if you want to give like equally to those groups, like, hey, we're gonna help both these organizations with a website revamp, then
Right,
Or are we going to do
a percentage.
percentage? Or, I don't know, I'm a little iffy on the Scout Lodge piece.
I know,
Because I
yeah.
think, percentage-wise, I think it's mainly private rental. And so does that bring tourism dollars to Philomath when it's private rental facility?
again, we just don't have a good
Yeah,
submittal from them or anybody on kind of how many people from outside of Loma proper are coming to be seeing. Yeah, I think part of our hope with Ball Cochran Memorial Park is would be places where like families from out of town, that loved ones could come and have that time to reflect and remember and think of loved ones that were veterans, and that would be a safe place, an appropriate place for them to do that. So I think equally the Scout Lodge would serve that purpose with their Veterans Memorial.
And there are events held there that bring, Paul Cochran, that bring folks. And
Yeah.
we also do have a piece of concrete that doesn't have a shelter in it as well.
But it has
we do.
2 picnic tables. That's good news.
So if we were, since it'd be easier for someone with, if we were to take the 24-25 funding column, you see the 24-25 column? If we were to take that but add the 4,000 for Bountiful Backyard and 3,000 for Scout Lodge, and then do a percentage to get to that number, how much would everyone get? Does that make sense?
I'm also doing, are you doing that?
Yeah, go ahead. It's always better to have more people do it.
Okay. Do you know?
More
The
country
race.
members.
Yeah,
So
let
we
me
just-
I'm entering what it currently is.
Okay.
And then what'd you say for Scout Lodge as well?
3,000.
3,000 for Scout Lodge.
4,000 back.
That totals 24,999.99. Is that what you got?
Yep.
Okay. And so you need about half of that. Right? More than half, okay. Maybe 60,
57.7%.
57.7.
Okay.
I mean, I think, yeah, the crux of this one is we're just sort of at this spot where, I mean, we have about half, I mean, that kind of checks out. We have about half as much money as we need.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to differentiate if any of these is more or less effective at, or the wants or needs are any more or less effective at helping with the tourist draw, right, playing their role in it. I think they all made a pretty reasonable assertion. Yeah. The Scout Lodge, I don't know. It's not really a public, the other ones are things that are like sort of open to the public, and that's the part that feels different to me. Is like giving them $3,000 to build a memorial that people pay to see. Feels strange to me a little bit, but I also I mean, I guess if they were drawing conferences from all over Oregon and Washington, I would feel better about that because those people would then be paying to stay here and, you know, go to the museum, go to, you know, get a coffee and do the things that we do here.
Which is why I didn't, since I didn't have a funding in 24-25, I didn't put their entire request into that.
Yeah, I followed that and it makes sense to me.
I think me too.
It does feel a little weird that we can't just go look and see the thing that they did with the money. Differentiates it with kind of the other people, but
We have totals that work?
Well, I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
out something.
I mean, what do you get? I was just trying to even out a little bit. There we go. So I have 2,800, 2310, 2780, 4810, and 1731. That equals 14,431
2, 3, 4.
because we cut out activity.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. That's right. What was the last one from Scout Lodge got?
1731.
Thank you.
I did a funkier
Finessing.
version of
Okay,
that.
yeah, go ahead.
It's technically, this is $70 over budget. We can fix that up. I know, I just rounded to the nearest hundred. I put the Historical Society at 3,500. Bountiful Backyard at 3,000. The Chamber at 2,500. The Frolic at 4,500.
and then the Scout Lodge at 1,000. And the reason I did that is
Counting more.
I tried to have some sort of similar amount of money between Bountiful Backyard and the Frolic, but the Frolic has more since they have similar projects. I put the Scout Lodge at only 1,000 just because it doesn't feel like a super great fit for this grant program, the project that they're doing. But I still think there's some merit to it. And then the Chamber and the Historical Society, I think I just tried to decrease both of those by enough to make this work, just because
Yeah.
both of their applications felt a little squishier. They can do $3,500 worth of maintenance in the same way they can do $10,000 worth of maintenance. It's not like
Right.
it's a specific project or something.
Acts a whole project. It
Right.
changes the.
And kind of a similar thing with the Chamber.
Yeah.
I didn't feel too bad about that, but I'm open to whatever.
So if you want the math to be perfect, you'd be like 34, 31 for Benton Historical.
Okay,
Based on your last argument about maintenance. And
sure. 34, 34. Yeah, okay, that works.
I feel like that's a well rationale allotment.
Okay.
So, and certainly if we were, I mean, yeah, unless we just distribute, I mean, I feel like it always kind of comes down to that, or just like
Right.
everybody gets a share and
Yeah.
for everybody that qualifies.
I know. And I think at some point, I don't think we're there this year. At some point, we should have the conversation about like, is it better to just say no to some people, and more fully fund some applications. But just I know from being on the boards, it's like you apply for a $10,000 grant and they give you $1,000 and you're like,
Yeah.
okay. You'll take it, but it's
Yeah,
kind of like that doesn't actually, you
plate
can't
is-
actually do the contract we wanted to do or whatever. We're not, I don't think we're quite there.
yeah, I don't think we're fully funding anyone.
Yeah.
And that was where I was at with the capital. Also, we
Right.
were ensuring
It's not
them
like
buying a
someone-
new doohickey or thing that they needed to be able to.
Yeah.
And not to look at the revenue side too quickly, but the RV park, when that comes online, that is gonna generate more money into the TLT fund.
Right.
And so it's probably gonna be worth reopening that discussion about the 50-50 split between what the city keeps and what we put into this pot. So either this pot's gonna get much, much bigger, or we're gonna put just a dollar cap on this, or maybe we cap it at 20,000 or 30,000, and everything over that, the city would choose which projects we want to do, because there are more projects the city could take on that aren't supporting other organizations. I think supporting the other organizations is important. But again, we'll just have to keep an eye on that. And
Yeah.
again, it's not gonna grow overnight. It's gonna go in phases.
Yeah.
So we'll see these TLT dollars going up, and the needs will always be there. I think it's important to support them, because again, the city can't do everything tourist related. We want
Right.
these other agencies helping in that effort and want to support them in that. So it's just one to keep an eye on, keep watching.
What it might be worth, like you said, if we have to say no to some, it might be worth kind of clearly outlining the exact type of project that we're looking for. So like a successful applicant will be,
Right,
have people
right.
coming from a certain
Right.
distance out,
Yeah.
so that we can say like, okay, well, here's what.
And if it directly ties to the city's strategic plan of here's the tourist related things that we'd like to do this year, then we could be very specific in the applications. Like, we're looking for towns that can do this part of our strategic plan or help with this part of the strategic plan. So it could be very specific, right? Like, we want to improve signage.
Right.
We want to improve our
Right.
online presence. Want to, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And maybe we just fund things that year that fit in with that plan that we've got.
But also, I do like the idea of having
kind of a chance for them to come and report to the council. Even, I'm not talking a 30-minute presentation, just a few minutes.
Not Republic Service.
No,
No.
no. Just a few minutes of
Boy, I got-
the organization, this is how we, how we utilize the funds, these are our vision for the future, what we'd like to do. Giving them just a
Yeah.
few minutes
Yeah.
to, let's see it face to face and,
Right.
and some accountability and because
I-
it is.
Yeah, I'm part of the deal. Like, if
Right,
you get
right.
it more than an invite, it's like, you know. Yeah.
Just a few, in just a few minutes.
I guess they wouldn't even have to.
We used to have a question on the application that said, if you received funding last year, please explain, or
I think that's still on there.
Left it off.
Yeah, the nonprofit funding, TLT. So yeah, if previous city TLT funds were received,
See it on the thing.
go Barna. Maybe I'm still in the social. Oh, there it is.
yeah.
You get a little bit there. But
Okay.
I do like the idea of it.
Yeah,
That's fairly common.
yeah, I
Does
just,
that be a direction to staff for future, or like, do we have in general, like,
I
I
think,
don't think we necessarily need a motion. but-
no, yeah, I think Chris and I can just work on inviting these people to presentations for the future, but we could try to put that as a thing on the applications for the future of like, heads up, if you're awarded funding, you'll get an invitation to, you know, present to the council. Yeah,
I would even say, staff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like.
But also give a time limit, because we do
Yeah,
a lot of presentations and I sit in a lot of
I know,
other
I know.
community.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have to do a 30-minute thing, it's a lot.
Yeah, that was my mistake last meeting.
Okay.
Telling people supposed to keep it to 10 minutes. Apologize.
That's okay.
the wrong people at Republic knew.
Yeah.
So should we make,
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna make a motion.
I move that the committee recommend to the city council the following grant awards for tourism grant funding to the Benton County Historical Society, $3,431, to Bountiful Backyard, $3,000, to the Philomath Area Chamber of Commerce, $2,500, to the Philomath Frolic and Rodeo, $4,500, and to the Philomath Scout Lodge, $1,000, for a total of $14,431 from account 10-8-5653 for tourist-related activities.
and I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
I,
I guess we should have had discussion, but
we've been
We
discussing.
did that.
Yeah.
Button.
Wonderful. See what the council thinks.
where are we at?
I got a point of order, I
Oh,
think.
yes,
Did we
please.
say anything about Maxivity in that motion?
Oh,
Yes.
well,
Okay.
I think, no, it's a good question. I think,
Meeted with her this week.
yeah, yeah. I think let's just, the three of us, when we're presenting this to the council, let's make sure to talk about, because I'm sure if we don't talk about it, some councilor will
Yes.
be like, why did you say screw activity? And it's like, we're actually saying, we're almost embracing them just through a separate process. So, yeah.
Probably doesn't need a forum.
Because like I said, I mean, their project just feels like, more like, I don't know. It'd be like if someone applied for a social service grant program to install a new sewer line. It's like, okay, that's more like, we're already gonna do that. Yeah, help us out. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We already handled the utility assistance grant.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
got that. So we are on to city manager's annual evaluation timeline, which I presume is what you just passed out.
Yes.
Yes.
Print a little too fast, so she got next to us. Oh, well, I don't know, but we, for her, it just.
I tried to text you like, oh, can you also print that?
Oh, no, yeah.
Can't deliver.
Okay, so the issue is, or do you want to?
Yeah, I'll present it. So this is based on process from the last several years. You'll find a timetable we're looking at city manager evaluation, which is done on an annual basis. Process is generally October through November. Sometimes that moves a little bit for meeting schedules. And so we're looking to get a recommendation to move forward with the timeline, which is on the second page, page 159, which shows the process timeline, as well as the evaluation criteria and the full evaluation with questions, not questions, but kind of the categories for questions that have been followed from previous years. And this, I believe, originally you pulled these from ICMA, which is the International City Manager Association, for reviewing city managers.
Yep.
And if you have anything else to add, please feel free.
Yeah, I tried to, well, one thing I'm trying to avoid having you do this over Thanksgiving, so, which we did a few years ago. It wasn't very popular.
No?
Tried that one out. Everybody else is eating turkey and pie and council's punching away.
There was no pie left by the time we got.
Or his evaluation was actually just really bad that year. Yeah.
No,
Coffee cost me a whole.
This time period does give you an opportunity to get it in front of the entire council, so they'll have a chance to look at it in October, and then we'll, once it out, that gives me a couple of days to do my personal evaluation, then I kick that out for everybody, so you can kind of feed off of that some. And then it still gives you a couple of weeks to get it in, and that gives us some time for the November 3rd council meeting, which Chelsea will be pulling all this together and grouping it in so it's kind of discernible. The rating scale is kind of the same. And then, as Chelsea just said, the evaluation itself is unchanged from last year. Some of the feedback from last year that I want to present to this committee was that the descriptions or the list of things under each of those professional characteristics and whatnot are maybe too many things, and the council wanted them split up into more areas to rate separately. The reason that these got lumped the way that is because we used to have a lot more things to score on, and it was overwhelming for the council. It was way too much, so we consolidated, try to keep it simple, and that probably way. The one thing that we did change in here is at the end of each section, the last questions would be over like 161. Here, well, I guess it comes at 1 point. I started to, yeah, so after 2.6, we changed this to please provide 6 examples that support your rating, as opposed to you say, please support any ratings for anything that was unacceptable or
Right.
below expectations. So it really did focus all the comments on only times that you rated something as below expectations or unacceptable. We got the long narrative. On this one, we left it more open to just say, provide specific examples to support your rating, whether it be positive or negative. And that way it's a little more open, and maybe it'll feel like it's a little bit more balanced with positive and negatives. That council opportunity to provide a little more balanced feedback on things that are going well, things that need improvement. So it doesn't feel like just the negative stuff, which again, the intent was to not have.
You're gonna break that.
It's scary for all of us, not just you. It's probably most scary
That
for
one-
you.
That one caught me off guard. Yeah.
City council budget. They let me get a share.
So you definitely have a second.
Just speaking, if I can make a comment.
Yeah.
I think when I first came into the council, we had the very, 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 very long one where everything was specific, one sentence per, it seemed like, so it really was.
Sure, okay.
And I think it was thorough, and you had a chance to vote on every little sentence as far as where these are clumped according to topic. Personally, I don't have a hard time reading the paragraph, contemplating the various ones. It seems it was a little tedious for me personally to go through every sentence with another response. It just
Yeah.
took a substantial amount of time per, where summarizing, I don't know if it's helpful for you, but it sure was easier as far as for me as a, evaluating to look at this and was thinking overall, what are we looking for rather than every sentence needing to go, does, as far as that division.
Yeah.
Because none of us, I mean, it is difficult. Do we want to spend 40 hours doing the evaluation?
No.
Personally, but
Um,
Not really.
I think I would agree with that, especially with the change to just say the specific, maybe instead of specific examples, like specific examples and thoughts or something, just because like, I think that's what we struggled with in the past was like, maybe under tech literacy or something, he does everything perfectly except for one of those things. So I don't want to give him a perfect score, but I also felt bad about dinging, but like then it's like I can explain that I didn't give him a perfect score just because he needs to improve his internet security knowledge or something, but everything else is perfect. Just something in there. I think where you can explain it a little more, I think would kind of take care of that.
Please provide comments.
Right, yes.
And or specific examples.
Right.
That's my care.
Yeah.
Some of the issue last year too, I remember, was that you didn't always have very specific examples. If
Sure,
it's something that's more internal,
sure,
it was
sure.
really more that you wanted to share a thought about
Right,
it, or you wanted to
yeah.
say, it wasn't negative, but you wanted to say, we would like to have some more information on how you
Right.
did that part of your job. And it,
Problem is that we don't have specific examples.
yes,
Yeah.
and maybe that was part of it, but it wasn't a negative thing. From it.
So if you open up more than, and then if there is like a specific area where, 80% is good, there's one area, then you can bring that out here, right? Yeah, there's all of this, but there is one area I should talk through, whereas the old form didn't really let you do that because it's just the negative, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, well, I don't want to score them negative on the whole thing just because that one area, but I don't really have a.
Right. Somewhere to say.
Place to clarify.
I guess I was just gonna go off of that to say, I feel like us all filling out this form is valuable and important. For me personally, I get, at least the way my brain works, I feel like the discussion with the council is even more valuable. And so I would argue for maybe even more time for that discussion or to just structure it a little differently. I know one of the things that I had asked for in the previous round was to have some time where like it's just the council talking and like we excuse like basically all the staff for a little bit, or maybe Crystal stays, or I don't know how that works, but like just a time for us to kind of talk candidly amongst ourselves, and then we bring staff back in and kind of talk about like, here's what we as a council think, just because I think it's important for this to be somewhat of a unified review from the council, and instead of like, we may have some disagreements on certain points, but I feel like that's better for us to work out and then to present to our employee as a sort of, as your collective employer, here is our feedback kind of thing. It just also feels more similar to how most employee performance evaluations go, like,
You wouldn't get a packet of individual.
well, it's just like, I don't, like, Chelsea doesn't get to like sit and watch over Chris's shoulder as he comes up with her employee or, performance evaluation. He gets to sit and kind of think about it for a second and come up with what he's going to say, and, that, and it just, obviously it's kind of unique because we are like each 1/7 of a brain here. But that would just be one change I think I would appreciate if
I would be comfortable with that. I tend to, this is gonna, I mean, I'll be able to probably come up with things, but if this doesn't particularly suit my style of evaluation, like I would rather like, I mean, I think we're fortunate to be in the situation where it'd be like work as a team to find areas to improve rather than go, oh my God, what are we gonna do about the thing that Chris did or whatever? Like, it's not that, but it's like, for me, it's like, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, in regards to problem solving, like, good. So then like, well, what do we do? Yeah, but I wanna make sure
right
could include areas of improvement. So
totally, yeah.
I do sort of like the what do we think about this approach, or like what, like, but it also is relatively time consuming and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always pretty consistently said that I'm not as interested in the points either and the scoring and
Right,
numbers and all
right,
that.
right.
I'm more interested in the conversation. But I will admit, I said it in several over 12 years, some of my evaluations, I've gotten very mixed messages from the city council. And sometimes it's hard even in that meeting because there's very dominant voices that dominate the whole discussion and they tend to be on the negative things. And it may be even a minority of the council, but I'm still hearing all sides of it, right? And then the end of the deal is like, man, for an hour and a half, Chris just got beat up in there. But really, the majority of council feels like Chris is doing a great job. And you look at the point totals and it's very, very positive, but yet we just sat through an hour and a half of listening to all the bad things that Chris has been doing or handling or how he's handled things. So in some ways, it might be, as you're saying, maybe we need to plan for a time for the council to come around and look at those totals and look at those
Right.
scores and have a better all kind of view of that. Maybe Chelsea can
Right.
lean in on that conversation a little bit too, or kind of help guide that a little bit. And then it's a little bit more of a united front when we do sit down to talk about it. The disadvantages, I kind of like having those insights of like, which council members do I need to work on that relationship better, or
Right,
that mode
right.
of communication better, or whatever. And so I would hate to lose out on some of that, so we just need to make sure we capture that still, and I'll
Yeah.
have the individual response
Yeah.
stuff, so.
I just think it helps us be more candid with, like, if I'm like, Teresa, did you get annoyed with Chris? And you're like sitting right there, it's kind of like, whereas like if you're out of the room, it feels like we can actually talk about that a little.
Yeah, I would just add that maybe making that portion more brief so
Yeah,
that we
sure.
aren't just saying all of the things and then
Right,
you
right.
spend, an hour and a half doing that, and then you come in the room with Chris and it's like 30 minutes for him and he doesn't
Right,
get it.
right.
So I would say if you made that very like focused and let
Yeah.
everyone know ahead of time, this is a place to focus together and have kind of a time limit. That might help that from happening
Well, we might.
potentially.
And can I clarify, are you talking about having, before we even do the process individually, meeting together, or do the process individually and then meeting together to discuss it? Yeah, I just need to clarify which step we're talking about.
Uh, Yeah, I would, maybe even to clarify the process a little, what we look, everybody, we get them, maybe we have scores already tallied. And then we look at areas where there's an outlier of a low score or something where we're collective low score. But I guess even maybe it's worthwhile to say where there was a huge range in score, might be like kind of any anomalies in the data where it's like, well, why did one counselor give him a 1 or 2, unacceptable or, not meeting expectations? And then one of us gave him a 4 or 5, like that is noteworthy. And I think,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, certainly you'd be welcome to have we could also then each say a thing about Chris or something, or.
Do you think, just playing this out on the 3rd, if you had an executive session before the meeting, and we have a regular meeting at 7, and then an executive session after the meeting, where I would be involved in the second one, is that enough time in that hour and a half, hour 45 minutes for the council to talk through it, go through stuff, and then feel like you've still got enough gas in the tank to have maybe a 45-minute, hour conversation after the meeting and executive session to go through? Is that enough time, or do you think there needs to be time between your executive session and your discussion with council and when you would meet with me?
I guess I was almost thinking, I think that could work. I was almost thinking the opposite of like, I almost like the idea of it being right back to back, so like it's still,
That's
right, like maybe we take a 10-minute recess or something, but like,
So council just
so it's like
started.
still fresh of like,
Yeah.
that thing we just talked about, now let's tell Chris about it. Suppose like, remember that thing we talked about 2 weeks ago? And everyone's like, not really. Especially if it's executive session, because then we couldn't keep our, our notes or anything.
Well, I think it would be logical to me to kind of time constrict it intentionally with the idea of making sure that it's focused and constructive, like
Right.
what are we looking at that like, what are the things and.
Did 40 minutes and 40 minutes?
Yeah, or an hour, maybe an hour just in case, because everybody talks.
We would do start at 5:30, so 6 or so we have an hour and a half,
We could do half an hour, have like a 10-minute break.
15 minutes that time.
I would maybe,
So I said 40.
could we start like at 5 or?
We could float it. Counselor Caseman probably works right up till 5. But
About
5:15.
third is what you're talking about.
Third.
I kind of like the back-to-back idea as well.
Yeah, I mean, it'll
think
be a
it's-
long night. I just feel like it's better to do it right and get it done, but.
Yeah.
I'm also just thinking about this, because that's how we did it on the school board for the superintendent's evaluation, was like, the superintendent would just go to her office for a little bit and we'd all kind of sit and talk, and then we'd invite her back in and be like, okay, so we sat and talked and here's kind of what we're thinking, and we still had a very candid conversation. It just helps kind of like, if one counselor has some weird thing that no one else thinks is a problem, they can still talk to the city manager about that, but it helps us not give the impression that like, that's the biggest priority for the council, is this one weird thing that only one person had a problem. It's like, we've all talked, here are like the 3 things we think you're doing great, here are a couple things we all think you can improve on. What are your thoughts on that? And then we can kind of get into our individual stuff, but it just kind of helps present a united front.
I think we do that for the 3rd. I think that's,
Okay.
I mean, if the council committee's comfortable with that, let's just plan to, so we'll start the executive session. I can be here for the beginning part even, maybe go through the statistics, look at the numbers real quick, and then I'll say, I'm gonna excuse myself, give you some time. Maybe we take a cap on that at 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then whenever you're done, then you can just invite me back in and we'll spend the rest of the meeting talking through. And then if we need to postpone at 7 and we need to go back after to kind of wrap things up, that's fine. After the regular scheduled meeting, if we needed the extra time, do that.
So you're thinking 5:30 then?
But
I think 5:30.
I think it's worth a shot at that. I think that I like the idea of really having to be able to be concentrated in that meeting and just say like, yeah, here's a couple low scores, or here, or even if there's something on there where everybody was like, he's exceptional at this, I think it's worth saying as a council. Chris, we all talk and we agree that you're providing our city exceptional service in this area. I think, or vice versa, and like, yeah.
Can I add a little tidbit?
Yeah.
I also think, if you're evaluating employees, they shouldn't hear about something for the first time at their evaluation.
Right.
So it can help with things like that, because not that Chris has heard about things for the first time, but it could focus more, and if there is something that's just seems like an outlier, I think it will help with that, because I do think some of that has come up in the
Right.
past, maybe, where it's just a little more focused, right? Like,
Right.
you don't go into an evaluation and just, let me think of,
Like-
it, and because there are 7 of you, that's why it's more complex.
Try to get out of that is like pull out some themes where like, maybe Counselor Irwin had a frustration about A and I had a frustration about B, and instead of going through all of it, it's like, okay, well, those actually sound like they're all about topic A, and so we can just talk about topic A instead of kind of,
Right.
running
Having it
off
like
our
a pet peeve.
Right.
Sorry, not to focus on all the
more-
negatives. Yeah.
I need better.
Okay,
Not pat myself on the back. It's just how to improve.
Yeah. And I guess, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. A couple other thoughts. The big one is just making sure when we send out the evaluation that we can send out what we said last year, for context, because I know a couple of the questions ask like, some like, well, at least last year they asked, something about like, adheres to council direction from blah, blah, blah. And it was like, I don't remember what our direction was last year. So like improves year over year on blank. And I'm like, I don't remember what we said last year kind of thing. So I think, especially since we tried to give more specific feedback last year of like, something about like improving timeliness of responses and like those kind of things. I think just having that be in front of the council as they fill out the evaluation is helpful. Because I think if we're going to give specific feedback. I think part of our evaluation needs to be like, here's how you did on implementing our specific feedback, you know, like you knocked it out of the park, or like you made progress, but we still want more improvement kind of thing. That, yeah.
Well, and I think it'll be useful. This will be my first one, for example, and
Right.
Counselor Caseman's first one.
Yeah.
It's also, yeah,
Yeah.
so there'll be three, you know, almost half of us that haven't done it before, and so it'd be great
Yeah.
to see, you know, like kind of what the expectation is. Sure.
And then,
Go ahead.
well, I was just thinking, can you remind me what we usually do for like, does Chelsea send it out, or where does it come from?
I've usually just sent it, but I'm leaning on Chelsea more. I mean, she's the HR, and so I've been leaning on her more to do mine stuff as well, which
Does that,
put more on her plate, but she's more capable.
are you comfortable with that? Is that, okay. Because I was gonna say, the other thing we did on the school board was the board chair actually handled the evaluation. So I was gonna say, we could structure it where like Teresa and I would actually manage the process, but I'm fine either way. I just,
You guys are busy and we've got the resources, so I just.
okay.
You can definitely reach out if you have questions about it. I have access to the
Past one.
past
Yeah,
ones anyway.
They're all on,
Sure.
the monkey.
Yeah.
That's what we've been using.
And then the last thing on my list, and I promise I'll be quiet, is I know we had a bigger discussion about like the 360 evaluation piece last year, and we did sort of that brief, just like department heads score 1 to 5 or whatever it was. I think part of what came up during that discussion was that we were intending to do like a bigger 360 evaluation like every other year or something like that. So does that mean we wanted to do that this year, or because we sort of did something last year? I was just curious kind of what our norm is on
The way
that.
I read that was, it was every other year and we did it last year, so I wasn't planning to do that with my stuff this year.
Okay.
That is true, we did set every other year.
I just wasn't sure if that was, okay. Because I feel like the way I remember the conversation was like, what we did last year was sort of just like a mini 360. And I guess I was under the impression there was like a larger sort of 360, but maybe I'm,
I'd want to, and we can talk about it here with the committee, I can tell you, my manager, Tim, doesn't like filling those out. They don't think they're overly helpful. They are very uncomfortable filling those out. And so I think you got some mixed results last time. I don't know that they were really helpful or not, but, you know, I hold them to the grind so they don't dare speak out against me ever, you know? But, no, I just think there's a lot of, lack of understanding or agreement with the value of them providing that type of feedback. And so, I would need to approach it, I guess, a little bit differently if we were to want to do that again in the future, because it's pretty mixed bags.
I handled that last year. I also can say that that was the feedback I got. Not that people were afraid to take it. They said, fine, take it. I didn't get positive. So I think it would have to be framed differently. I don't think
what would have to be different? Because that's odd to me.
I don't know. I think it would take a little bit of time to look, like Chris said, to look ahead to see what might be valuable and where you would get the information that you're kind of seeking, or just to make it more focused. Some of it is, we are a really small organization.
Sure.
So it's not like doing it at City of Corvallis where, you got people branched out all over the place. So I think that some of it is that our management team is a very close team. And so I do think there's a little bit of that, but I think that we could look at some maybe different options that just fit better for
And that was
the
my,
smaller organization.
that was the notes I had, was that my understanding was that it would not be this year, in that we
Okay.
had to complete enough, the evaluation
Okay.
was adequate for
Yeah, so maybe we could just talk through it next year, maybe earlier, and just, I think to me, it's really, it's like, what is the council really wanting to hear from the management team, right? Is it
Focus of that.
this, it's because it's probably not this stuff, right? So what is it that you're wanting to hear? And I think I pulled something last year and ran it by, and you're like, yeah, this is good. But again, at least from the ones that were taking it, they're like, how is this even relevant? Like, this isn't even what they should be looking at you for. Like, I don't, it's, so we can look a little bit closer next year, maybe come
We
up
could
with.
ask them to tell us.
I think,
Like, maybe
Sure.
not a pressure to like filter it through you guys, like.
Mike, what do you think would be the?
Yeah.
That, okay, okay.
Ready to tell Chris anything.
Biggest side effect of a small team is.
Right.
but I get
feel-
it. But like, I feel like it's good for the council to know that. Like, I just think my problem with any sort of structure like a school board or a city council is like, everything goes down to Chris and then back up through, well, not, let me anonymize this. Everything goes down to the city manager and then back up through the city manager.
Right.
So not that I think there are big problems, but just, I feel like we have a due diligence piece where like, if there is some big problem that the city manager is just not telling us about, how do we find out about that if the only person who reports to us is the city manager, And I'm not, this isn't like this is just a structural
Generic
governance issue.
conversation.
Yeah.
But in the same way, in organizations and things, there is this balance between micromanaging
Right,
and involvement.
right.
We definitely, we have a vested interest in that the managers are happy and content and feeling that their relationships with the city managers are good. There's another thing of us trying to micromanage all of those individual managers in regards to, so how are you doing in your communication with Chris, and how is he relating to, that relationship piece? I never want to think that we are, as a council, trying to micromanage.
That's not at all what I'm just thinking like, I'm a chief of staff is my paid job, and I supervise other legislative staff, and I feel like every couple months, my boss will like sit down with our legislative aide and be like, so how are you doing? Like, how are you getting along with Christopher? Like, is he supporting you well? Like, yada, yada. And then that's like, because maybe I'm doing something that they just haven't figured out how to tell me I'm doing wrong. And if they tell my boss and she's like, hey, just so you know, like, so-and-so said they felt like, you weren't, helping them through this and I'm like, oh, that's good to know. Okay. And then I can also figure out, I just feel like, I don't know, to me, that's not micromanaging. It's like, because my boss isn't directly skipping me and telling them what to do. Her job is to supervise me, and she's just trying to supervise me better by kind of getting feedback about how I'm doing at my job, which is supervising everyone else. But I don't know. I think
I agree with you and think that it also, I hear that there's a kind of a tight culture, and then B, like more work, like filling out some big evaluation feels like a lot too. So maybe something more informal or something where it's like you said, literally like, so how's it going with Chris, like kind of like we just did with Mike, but like maybe, we can't,
It can be something a little bit less formalized.
Like
with
a
that.
short, like punchy, like 3 or 4 questions, like, do you feel supported? And
I think it was short, the last.
the culture.
Yeah, I get feedback, Grant. If I take Mike off, I don't get a paycheck. If I take Kevin off, I take police off and I get arrested and thrown in jail. So it's like, I get pretty instant feedback on how I'm doing. No, but I do think the city manager role is a little different because I am the CEO.
Right.
And a little different, the board's overseeing the CEO and on what I do and all this stuff. And then how I interact with all of my different directors and employees and all that, it's a little different makeup, I think. So I think that's maybe where the discomfort is. But again, maybe that's a group discussion, right?
Maybe
And
that's
we
what
can
we're talking
talk through that. But yeah, I can just tell you last year, writing out the answers to that, who was not comfortable and weird, and they were like, why are we even doing this kind of thing? So maybe that was the questions, maybe that was, I don't know.
I do have I have a 6:30 meeting.
Oh,
Sorry, I have another meeting to go to.
The last thing I guess, part of the reason I want it is like, and I think I shared this last year, I just don't feel like I can answer some of these, like, treats subordinates in a fair, consistent, and impartial manner with due recognition for, I don't know. I'm not your subordinate. How am I supposed to know that without hearing from your subordinate? Like, so I think that's part of why I want it, is like, we put those as, like, we put those as your evaluation criteria, and then we don't get any tools to evaluate them. Like, I get, maybe no one's complained to me, so that's a good sign, but it's just like, I also don't know if you did yell at someone in Public Works, if their first thought would be like, well, let me call the mayor. So I guess that's more where it's coming from, is like,
That's
it is
fair.
already baked into the review, so.
Then make those in your comments, or
Yeah.
you can make that, like, it'd be good to have some information and refer on that one.
It is in there.
Right, and there's a couple other sections that have like, takes feedback from staff, or, like, oh, takes feedback from us, but that's not what it's asking, so.
That's the last item on our agenda. Do we have anything else we want to adjourn?
We can adjourn, next to meeting, next.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
It's a meeting
I know you're
time
missing
of
one.
year.